Hey, what's up? I'm Vigil, or DJ, for the name Vigil. Uh, I thought I'd go over today one of the Bible's logic mechanisms. It's a paradox riddle, essentially. Um, Today, you will learn that in the Bible, it contains the keys of creation: time travel, faster than light travel, genome editing, um, nanorobotics, neuralaces, uh, and it contains all the theories of time travel within it: Joseph's dream, or the non-rewritable timeline. Um, anyways, so Psalms 1 talks about how the nations will rant and rage in anger about how they can't get the chains that the Jewish God has put on all of creation. And then uh, later, Paul talks about how Jesus Christ is like fettered chains that are liberation chains. And there's a misconception that the chains are um, anything but causality. That's all they are. Is a causal chain system. But anyways, so Jesus Christ and like the Jewish community, it's pretty brilliant what they did, and it was methodically planned. It was methodically planned based upon the evidence that I've seen. Essentially, some sort of time traveling tribe created the Solomon's temple on the earth, and like what it is so Jesus Christ is the cornerstone or foundation, and what it is that in the Jewish Bible, or the Old Testament, it contains faster than light travel, um, like the wheel within a wheel, and it contains within it the halo, which is like time warping, space time. Mechanical faster than light travel, not simply like warping space bubbles, but like literal mechanically moving faster than the speed of light with a wheel. Um, the math is super simple to understand. I can do it. I'm not that great of a mathematician. And and then what they did was they created like essentially what is a glass um, case, put all of the technology, open source semantic or blueprints and schematics and shit like that into this glass case, and then anyone who views it is tied to it forever. And like what this means is that like if you know the name of Jesus Christ, or you read the Bible, or anything like that, you're tied to it causally. One name, essentially, what they did was, it's pretty brilliant what they did, and I for one support it completely. I didn't know when I was reading Christianity and stuff like that. I didn't know what they had done, and I thought the whole religion was just arbitrarily stupid. But like, it's brilliant what they did. So time travel, or the halo, um, which is a photon that frame Drake's space-time warping it, uh, combined with the wheel within a wheel, which is mechanically moving faster than light, nanorobotics, genome editing. All of it is in the Old Testament encoded. All you got to do is find a codex. And like, uh, anyways, so let's say you wanted to go back in time and eliminate Jesus, or you wanted to go back in time and eliminate, um, well, anything back in time now, like the Jewish faith that has the Talmud and like the Torah, and which contains all this super hyper advanced technology. Some of it openly you can see some of it, and then other versions of it or other technologies is encoded within it. You got to crack the codes and find the right codex, and like, um, if you went back in time to change it, you'd create a grandfather paradox, and our entire planet is tied to this grandfather paradox that Jesus Christ created when he became a staple within the timeline, and his name spread. And like, whether you like his teachings or whatnot, it says in the Bible that they give the keys of creation to all of creation through the saints, and that's exactly what they did. Like, non-religious in the sense of like God existing, or non-religious in the sense of him being the son of God or like God himself or whatever. I don't know. But if you look at it from the technological aspect, what they did was Psalms 1, they tied you all to the name of Christ, and then the name of Christ, his book, contains within it faster than light travel, or warps moving faster than the speed of light. It contains within it time travel, keys like that allow you to travel time. It contains within it like essentially everything. And like I have seen some of the technology, some of it I haven't, and so they created a technocratic, democratic, limited democratic republic. Supposedly, if you read like the description of their governments, but that's not the point. What they did with the Solomon's Temple was, uh, if you hear the name of Jesus Christ or you interact with anybody who's ever heard his name, you're causally bound to the keys, which to the Bible essentially, like and like manifest destiny served the purpose of connecting and pushing the causal chains of creation onto all of our species, and any species that ever interacts with our species will be causally tied to us too. And so in a time war, what they did was, if you read Ezekiel, it talks about how like he saw a wheel within a wheel. That's faster than light travel. And he saw uh, father eating flesh of son and son eating flesh of father, which is nanorobotic zombies. If you read Revelations, it talks about how the image of the beast is on the right hand and forehead. Why would they do that? It's probably a QR code that any neuralace in anyone's brain that sees it uploads a virus into it and turns them into a hive mind, and the hive mind spreads across the planet. Like, that's my theory about what the beast of or the image of Revelations is, or whatever. But like, I don't know for sure. But essentially, if you want to travel time, the technology is in the Torah. It can teach you how to do it. You just got to crack the codes. And like the codes, the codex is probably something super simple, to be honest. Like something that like no one thought to apply, but it could be the name of Christ for all who knows. Like maybe the name Jesus Christ in one of the various languages is the codex for like cracking the code. It'd be funny for one, but like what this means though is that time travel technology, like which can be miniaturized. Like if you get, I did the math on it once. If you create a drill bit, so the faster than light mechanical device works is you have an inner circumference with the motor spinning it, and it can't move faster than the speed of light. But if you put a flat silver disc on it, you then expand the circumference but have the same RPM. And with this, you're able to continue spinning the inner circle at the same RPM, but the outer circle's circumference edge is now traveling in a circle faster than the speed of light. And like the photon warps space-time. Like, so if you actually understand physics a little bit better than our last century, the double slit experiment, my theory is that it's not a wave, it's frame dragging space-time as it passes through it. And so when you measure, or like when you have two slits, as you have two particles going through those two slits, they're both pulling towards each other because of frame dragging. Like they're warping, photons warp space-time like they have gravity, but they don't. And so like when you only have one slit, it's shooting straight at it. And like when you have two though, you have two, it's like when you have like a suction of two things get pulled in towards each other and bounce, and when they hit each other, they plank, or they wave to wave lose some of their energy, and then they bounce like that. And so like it's frame dragging is like what causes the double slit experiment. And then you have quantum mechanic tunneling and subatomic swerving. If you look at gravitational waves, which are basic general relativity, we view them mostly on like this macro level, like gravitational waves from explosions, or like black holes that are these giant detectable with the laser. Like, so what they do is that they take two lasers that are that are in an L shape, and like what it does is it bounces up and then it bounces down, it bounces up. A photon goes back and forth in this specific distance, and they measure the time, and then because photons travel at the same speed no matter what ether they're in. But then you have another one bouncing up down like this, and when they measure a difference in the bounce rate of how fast the photons should return, they can detect gravitational waves. But we never view them on a Planck level. So like if you view space-time as these cubes, when you have what is essentially a gravitational ripple, like a Planck light wave rippling through space-time, and they're everywhere. It's why the illusion of the time crystal is that it is beating thermodynamics. It's just moving back and forth between two states because gravitational waves keep smacking it. And like, but if you look at the subatomic particle, imagine it's passing through a whole bunch of cubes. And as it's passing through these cubes, the cubes are compressing because of gravitational waves and then expanding. And so like, if you have an object and it's passing through a space-time cube and the cube compresses, the object will then, when the cube decompresses, swerve because the compression swerves it. Or if it compresses it and it's going straight on through it, it'll look like it's going, and all of a sudden the space-time cube will compress, and then it'll expand again, and the the subatomic particle will have the illusion of jumping or tunneling. And like the reality is that modern quantum mechanics is off the deep end. It's completely wrong. We're still in a deterministic environment, sort of, and like what we thought was like subatomic particles popping in and out of existence is quantum tesseracting of space-time cubes affecting subatomic particles. And the photon is not a real. It's not a photon. It's a particle packet that is able to frame drag, and so when you measure it, you're affecting. It's like like the uncertainty principle. Super easy to understand, and like we have this belief system that like the particles in two spots at once, Schrodinger's cat or whatever. When in reality, what's going on is you have imagine if you're watching a video, you take one picture, you would go, you know exactly where it's at, you know the position. You take two pictures now, and now you know where it was, and then a second later where it was again, and so you know the direction and you know the velocity, and like the more pictures you take, the more accurate you can get to understand the velocity, but you lose the ability to detect the position. It's the difference between viewing a single photo to get where something is and hold it in still, and then versus two photos or three photos to get its direction and its speed, which then say puts it in two spots, when in reality it's just how you measure it. Like it's frame rate essentially, and it's a super easy concept to understand. The fact no one considered it, like the idea that it's some advanced physics idea, is silly. But anyways, so the halo is a coiled glass tube or something that allows the charging of it with photons, like a fiber optic cable sort of, but coiled in a circle. And this coiled circle, like lumens, and like so electrons are extremely like the theory of electrons can be applied to like the particle light beam and like photon, but they're not waves. They're not. So what you have is like a Tesla coil is able to change the mathematical formula of the electron. So you have voltage, which is the amount of energy in each individual volt or each individual electron, and the electrons carry different amounts of energy. And then you have amperage, which is a slice in a wire over time, a delta, that says 4 electrons have passed through this in a unit of time. So if you times the volt, and like imagine when it's part of a current, there's various swerving and there's and stuff like that, as it like which causes thermal entropic decay, uh, and like the wire heating up, resistance or ohms. So like if you get ohms down to zero or whatever, so there's no impedance, like a superposition state or whatever they call it, or a super. I can't think what the materials are called, hyperconductive or superconductive. Um, when you lower the impedance, you then can simply work with a simple formula of voltage times amperage equals wattage, and wattage is the total energy. And so it's in the Tesla coil, he realized that you could take a whole bunch of electrons, and by converting the electrons, a whole bunch of electrons energy, and transferring it over to the same amount of energy into just a couple of volts or a couple of electrons, you would essentially change the formula so like you'd have the same amount of voltage total, and like electrons are hitting each other, so they share their voltage, uh, and like you you're able to decide with transformers and like inductance and stuff like that with Tesla coils how many the amperage, how many electrons you have per unit of time, and you can control the voltage and you can manipulate the two of them. What this allows though is the electron gun, where you charge a single electron with a whole bunch of voltage and then discharge it into a direction, or you can uh, create a whole bunch of electrons with really low voltage and create an electron cloud, which is, I think, theoretically what he was able to do to light up the fluorescent bulbs and stuff like that they're holding in their hands. But the same Tesla coil theories can be applied to photons, or not photons, but light particles. What this means is that a light particle, my theory is the reason it travels at the same speed, the universal speed of light, no matter how much energy the light beam has or what relative space-time it's traveling through, is because it's like the photon is moving through space-time, and as it's moving through space-time it causes frame dragging, or it pulls on space like gravity does. So as it's moving through space-time, the more energy it has, the more pull or frame dragging it has. So that like it's like having a parachute. So like as you're traveling forward with a beam of light, or particle light, a light, anyways, like the more energy it has, the more frame dragging it has. So the more drag it has, and what's happening is that it's slowing itself down the more energy it has. It's the same theory of like why we can't theoretically accelerate a mass up to the speed of light. And then, so if you understand this and you start to figure out how you charge a light particle, like you do an electron in a Tesla coil, and it's probably just some fiber optic cabling mechanism or a laser that charges a coiled tube that's made out of fiber optic light bending material. But like when you charge, I'm just going to call them a lumen for volt, and like a, I don't know, energy, light particles and lumens. So like the light particle is essentially the wattage or the amperage. The number of light particles is the amperage, and the amount of energy per light particle is the volt, or is the lumen. And together these determine the energy, and the amount of energy determines the amount of local frame dragging, and the local frame dragging is what slows it down with like an impedance that keeps it at the speed of light. But then like so what you can do though is like the saints, the ancient beings, they all had halos, and like it's ingrained into our society, and like just like the wheel within a wheel is, and like in the name of Jesus Christ is, and like simply interacting with someone who's been tied causally to the Christian community is tied to the Christian community, and they can't do anything to eliminate that. Like you would have to uproot and destroy our entire species But if you did that, you would no longer exist, so it would create a grandfather paradox. But so like theoretically, when you charge a photon, you can then put it in a coil, and like you can start looping it in a circle, and this will start to frame drag space-time, and like you can put it on the edge of the wheel within a wheel, and you're essentially putting something that's grabbing space-time on something that's traveling in a circle around, and like there's more than that. Like there like sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. It's very late in the day. So, anyways, the photon torpedo is essentially a light particle that has one in the formula with an extremely high lumen, and it shoots off, and so when it hits something, it is like delivering a massive amount of energy in a torpedo shot. It's like the ion cannon, but with light beams. And so now that we've broken apart the uncertainty principle, Schrodinger's cat, the understanding of why subatomic particles are swerving and why they're tesseracting or tunneling, which is tesseracting through space-time because of the compression of the space-time cubes. You can begin applying all this to engineering. So like once you comprehend this, you can begin applying it to the engineering of quantum computers. You can begin building laser guns, but they're not lasers. They're laser particle guns, which are awesome. You can begin building spaceships or faster than light travel. You can begin building machines like mechanical devices that with limited energy accelerate something past the speed of light. You can begin warping space-time. You can create gravity wells, and like in a quantum computer, you can get them at the temperature you can get them at room temperature essentially by wrapping them in a light Faraday cage or whatever, like a light particle voltage Faraday cage that stops the gravitational waves on the quantum level, which is what's fucking up your processors, because like it's swerving and it's compressing and it's screwing up your ability to measure it. Like you can keep these computers now at room temperature or hotter. Like what else? Like this theoretically, if it's correct, and I am correct, opens up the engineering door for all the shit that we see in science fiction, the starships and stuff. I've more theories, but these are the ones that I'm pretty positive are correct. But so now that you know how all this works, if you go back in time to try to stop it from being put in the Bible, you can't. Like, it's impossible essentially, which is really good. The foundation that the Jews built, which was brilliant, and they were a time traveling tribe, like of hackers essentially, super intelligent beings that were traveling through time, and they stopped on Earth, built a temple, and that's all of human history. The whole purpose of our species and art, we're essentially the carriers of the keys of creation that allows any being who visits our planet to grab all this technology and bounce, and like, but then they can't destroy us with it either. And like, because if they destroyed us, or they try to go back in time and prevent us from creating this frozen glass temple that is impenetrable and unable to be destroyed, if they tried to prevent it from being created, they wouldn't have the technology to prevent it. And like, and if they destroy it, like, I don't know. I guess I know that it's the foundation for a stable timeline, and like, I guess if it doesn't work, we'll never know it, because like, if you destroy the temple, or you destroy the name of Christ, or you alter it, we cease to exist. And like, anyways, so what else is there? That's the whole point of the Christian religion, was to tie everything to this one name, which linked directly to the keys of faster than light travel and time travel and other shit like genome editing and whatnot, and then spread it to all of our species. And then, so that's the foundation, and it's a temple. of it's a logicware temple. It's not a physical temple. And sorry, I know I'm rambling. I'm just trying to think about it all clearly. But as I think about it, I'm hitting a firewall, which is like a causal impedance. But what else? Oh, so if you view the future and you try to say something that prevents that future, then you never viewed the future. And if you never viewed the future, then how can you say anything to prevent it? Forward-looking grandfather paradox. It's why people who use the technology of time travel can't talk directly. And like this belief that like we've somehow been like that it's a curse or whatever is just fiction. It's literally like when the Christians talk about speaking in tongues and it sounds like madness. It's alinear, abstract, parallel, direct communication between the different time zones. And what else? The fire that burns but does not consume is a reference to time travel. Impedance can set you alight and like really burn you up, like transfiguration or like Moses and Jesus and stuff like that. They're interacting with time travel essentially, and like it creates an energy or kinetic impedance or something like that, or some sort of causal impedance, and it makes you feel like you're on fire. I think technically, I don't know. I had headaches when I was little. I I sometimes feel like my body's heating up when I interact with the future. And what else? Anyways, so like that is the Jewish religion. It was created by time travelers, I'm pretty sure, to open source the Solomon's Temple, which is everything that is in the Old Testament, which is everything that we need to become a star-faring, time-traveling civilization. It's built in with causal chains, as Psalms 1 talks about, through the name of Christ. And the Christian religion is really the authentic version of it, is a technocratic society that was locking everyone into these chains, which is why like they were reviled and hated by the people who learned what they were doing. But by doing this, anyone who has a Bible and a little bit of education can theoretically figure out how to build time machines and starships, and it explains the various time theories and like time travel theories and whatnot. And what else? So it's pretty cool. Uh, there's more. There's a lot more. I I can build you just about anything at this point. I need uh, I need to think about some of it, but like now that you've got this from me, and you've read this or you've seen this or others have seen it, anyone who sees this or interacts with this will essentially anyone they interact with will spread it in a logic thread. But like what this means is that the keys are locked in the open, and nothing can destroy that, because anyone on our planet who tries to go back in time and prevent it will cease to exist theoretically. And who knows? I don't know. Let's see if it works. We'll never know if it doesn't work, because we'll cease to exist. And but the thing is if I don't know. It's just my thoughts. I know that was super disjointed today, and I apologize for that. Anyways,